Hey there, word nerds and curious minds. Ever thought about, like, the magic trick those little 3 to 5-year-olds pull off when they start picking up new words? That's our deep dive today.
Mm.
All about helping those awesome little learners find their voices.
It's such a critical stage for language development, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And you know how people are always saying kids are like sponges soaking up every word? We're about to bust that myth wide open,
Eh,
or at least kind of complicate it.
yeah, it's not quite as simple as a word flying by and poof, it sticks, is it?
Definitely not.
I mean, surrounding them with language is important, but research is clear. Those aha moments, they come with a bit more strategy.
So, like, more than just those everyday words.
Exactly. We're talking about, especially when it comes to those content-specific words, explicit vocabulary instruction. You know, the words that lay that foundation for academic
So
success.
giving them the tools to tackle those big concepts early on in science, nature, art, the whole shebang.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine a teacher introducing words like habitat or organism to like a 4-year-old. Big words for little ears, right?
Right.
But that's how we build those strong foundations early on.
It's like giving them a head start in the word marathon, not just a quick sprint.
I like that.
And speaking of marathons, one thing that really struck me in the research was the power of repetition. Like one study even found it took, get this, up to 24 repetitions of a new word for most children to really remember it.
That's wild, isn't it? But it really highlights how important it is to weave those new words into, games, songs, those everyday interactions.
Make it fun.
Exactly. And this is where those practical strategies, like the ones from the Worcestershire Speech and Language Therapy Guide, come in.
Yes.
They have this thing, 5 ways to make words stick, all about making learning fun and memorable.
Okay, so spill the beans.
Yeah.
What are some of these like magical word sticking strategies?
Well, picture this. A teacher introducing the word gigantic. Not just saying it, but making it come alive. They might use a booming voice, stretch their arms out wide, maybe even find a giant teddy bear just to really, drive home the meaning.
Oh, I love that, bringing those words to life. And, don't underestimate silly voices. I bet those stick with kids long after the lesson is over.
Oh, absolutely. And even something as simple as, like, clapping out the syllables of a word can make a world of difference. Let's say you're teaching the word caterpillar.
Okay. Catter.
Break it down, caterpillar. It becomes less daunting, easier to pronounce, and a little more fun.
Way less daunting. It's amazing how those little tricks can unlock a whole new level of understanding for them.
And speaking of unlocking understanding, we've got to talk about chunking and linking.
Ooh.
Two memory tricks that work wonders for young learners, and let's be honest, for us grown-ups too.
Oh, yes. Chunking. It's like that trick we used to memorize phone numbers, right? Breaking them down into smaller, more manageable bits.
Precisely. And when it comes to vocabulary, you can apply that same principle. Let's take the word hippopotamus. Seems like a mouthful, right?
It does.
But if you chunk it, hippo, pot, amusis, suddenly it becomes less intimidating and a lot easier for those little minds to grasp.
It's like turning a word mountain into, like, manageable stepping stones.
I like it.
And what about linking? That one always reminds me of, like, creating those wild stories to remember a grocery list.
Exactly. Like, let's say you're teaching the word apple.
Okay, apple.
You could link it to a story. The bright red apple fell from the tree and landed right on the sleeping cat's head.
Oh, no.
The more vivid and engaging the story, the more likely that word
More
was.
funnier, yeah.
I will stick.
And the more fun those little learners will have. Now, we've talked about making those individual words stick, but there's also this whole other concept of building knowledge networks, which it's like we're moving beyond single words to creating these interconnected webs of understanding.
You've hit the nail on the head. Think of it like building a magnificent castle. Each word is a brick. And as we teach words in clusters, we're helping them construct these sturdy towers of knowledge.
Ooh.
It's not just memorizing isolated words, but understanding your place in the world.
So instead of just teaching like apple, banana, orange, we're teaching fruits, creating those categories
Yes.
to help them organize all those new words in those amazing little brains.
You got it. And when children understand those connections, learning becomes more meaningful, more memorable.
Right.
It's like piecing together a giant puzzle where each word represents a vital piece of the bigger picture. It's like we're giving them the blueprints to build their own language castles, complete with different rooms for different categories of words.
I love that. Okay, so we're giving them the blueprints,
Yeah.
right? But there's this other thing I hear all the time, the vocabulary explosion. Like they just suddenly become these tiny Shakespearean scholars overnight.
Right, right. Like there's this like magical moment when they just become fluent. But research kind of paints a different picture, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's not like they get struck by, like, vocabulary lightning.
No, not
More like
quite
a
that.
steady drizzle that, like, gradually nourishes their language gardens.
Exactly. While it might seem like they're suddenly picking up words at this incredible pace,
Yeah.
it's actually more of a gradual process
Makes sense.
of integrating and using those words that they've been exposed to over time.
So more like a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
Now, you mentioned earlier the importance of, like, child-friendly definitions. What does that actually look like,
Yeah.
in practice? How do we explain those, what did you call them, tier 2 words in a way that, like, clicks for these little guys?
Ah, yes. Tier 2 words. Those are the words, that we use across all these different subjects, like observe instead of look, or similar instead of alike. They just add that extra layer of richness to their vocabulary. And when it comes to explaining them, it's all about keeping it like super simple, relatable. For example, instead of saying transparent means allowing light to pass through, you might say, look, we can see through the window because it's transparent.
Ah, so using real-world examples.
Exactly.
It's about, like, meeting them where they are developmentally,
Yeah.
making those connections to their everyday life.
Exactly. And, the EL update document, we have it right here.
Yeah.
They emphasize using like visual aids whenever possible.
That's a good idea.
Like show them a picture of a window while explaining the word transparent. Visuals are so powerful, especially for young learners.
Right. It's true what they say. Picture's worth 1,000 words. And it kind of ties back to that idea of, like, multisensory learning, engaging their sight, their sound, even touch, when possible.
Mm-hmm.
The more senses we can engage, the more those words come alive for them.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
Now, speaking of bringing words to life, we've got to talk about the power of being intentional about, selecting the vocabulary words.
Oh, interesting.
We only have so much time with them, right? So we
Right.
want to make every word count.
So it's not just about any word, but choosing those, like, high-impact words that they'll see again and again in different places.
You got it. We want to prioritize those words that have staying power, like maintain instead of keep going, or fortunate instead of lucky. These tier 2 words, they add this level of sophistication to their language and are essential for comprehending, those more complex texts that they're going to encounter as they grow.
Wow. We're setting them up for success. But it's not just about, like, reading and writing. It's about being able to, like, understand and express themselves in all these different areas.
Right. Exactly. And that's where the idea of content is king comes into play. We don't want to shy away from those subject-specific words, even in preschool.
Even in preschool. Wow.
Yeah.
So we're talking about, like, science words, math words.
Incorporating those science, math, social studies words into our lessons. Yeah, even with our youngest learners.
Wow.
Yeah, even if they don't, like, fully grasp all the complexities of photosynthesis,
Right.
introducing the word plant and talking about how plants need sunlight to grow, lays the groundwork for deeper understanding later on. There's some fascinating research by Newman and Wright that highlights how introducing students to, content-related vocabulary helps them to build word knowledge and concepts that are just, like, so essential for, developing knowledge systematically from texts.
So it's like we're planting those seeds of curiosity and setting the stage for this, like, lifelong love of learning.
Exactly. And remember, it's not just about the words, but it's those knowledge networks that we're helping them build.
Right.
Each new word becomes this part of their growing understanding of the whole world around them.
It's incredible, isn't it, to think
It
about.
is.
So for all those busy teachers out there, I know juggling all of this might seem like a lot.
It can.
But the EL update, they actually suggest something pretty interesting. Observing those little learners. Watching how they naturally remember things.
Oh, I love that.
So smart, right.
It's like we're taking cues from the experts themselves.
Totally. Like some kids might, I don't know, close their eyes and picture a word.
Visualization, yes.
While others are out there, like, counting the words on their fingers or even creating these little songs.
Oh, that's great.
It's about, like, tapping into their own natural learning styles.
Give them that toolbox.
Yes. A toolbox of strategies.
I love it. Instead of forcing this, one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly. And I think it's important to remember, too, repetition.
So key.
We talked about those 24 repetitions.
Yes, we did.
But it's not just about, like, drilling flashcards.
No.
It's about creating that rich environment where those words just come alive through, games and songs and stories.
Exactly. Make it joyful. Make it engaging.
Make it fun
Yes.
so they don't even realize they're learning.
Exactly. By weaving these evidence-based strategies into, our everyday teaching, we're not just giving them more words, right? We're opening up a world of possibilities.
We are. We really are. So listeners, think about this. What's one tier 2 word, something like observe or predict, that you could swap in for a simpler word in your conversations with those little learners? You might just spark a love of language that lasts a lifetime. Happy teaching, everyone.